Hey everyone, Chelsea here from So Simple Home. Today I am starting a series that I'm actually very excited about. It is a hand embroidery series. I have been doing a lot of different hand embroidery projects over the past 4 or 5 years, and it's been something on my list that I really wanted to do. I do a lot of projects over at the Sulky blog. Here's one of them. This is a fun little needle case with some lazy daisy stitches on the front. But a lot of people have asked over the years, hey, what kind of hand embroidery projects do you have? And I don't have a whole lot on the blog. So we're going to change that today. And we're going to start an entire series on the basics of hand embroidery. So today's video, we are going to focus on the supplies that you need to start embroidering, as well as some of the most basic embroidery stitches. So to start out, when you want to do some hand embroidering, there's a few things that you will need to get. First off, you'll need some embroidery hoops, and embroidery hoops come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. This is a 6-inch and this is an 8-inch. These are primarily the ones that I'm going to be using over the course of this series. The 6-inch is pretty standard, as well as the 8. It's a little bit bigger, and so I typically will go with the 6 unless I have a really big embroidery project. But the size of your project will change the size of the hoop that you might need. But if you have a 6 or an 8, you should be good to go. The next thing that you'll need is a good pair of embroidery scissors. These are usually tiny scissors. There's all sorts of them. This is a very standard one with the bird on it. So you can have, as you can see, lots of different embroidery scissors, but a small pair of scissors that can really get into those tiny little threads and sections is actually very essential for embroidery. Talk about fabrics for embroidery. The best fabrics are really nice thin cottons or linens. If you're getting into really heavy thick fabrics like knits, even denim, it can be a struggle to really accomplish what you want to with some of the fine embroidery projects. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't embroider on knits and denim. You will see in this series, we're going to do a little bit of that. But when you're first starting out, especially when you're starting these basic stitches, cottons and linens really are the easiest to work with, and they're going to work the best for your designs, especially the really intricate designs. Next, we're going to talk about embroidery floss, or embroidery threads, if you will. Now, embroidery floss can come in many varieties. You probably, if you've tried embroidery at all, have seen them come in packaging like this. When you find the end, it usually comes with about 6 strands on it. And most embroidery projects are going to have you use 2 to 3 strands of embroidery floss. Just kind of depends on the project. You can also buy them in packages like this where there's multiple, or you can buy them individually. So Sulky thread has the thread individually. This is 12 weight. This is typically what I will buy, and I'll use 2 strands of the 12 weight cotton petites, and it works really great for most of these projects. It's a nice thick thread that's going to give you that look that you want when you're doing your projects. And again, it just depends on how you want to purchase and store your embroidery floss. Now, maybe you have seen embroidery floss wrapped around these little paper bobbins. That's what these are called. These are embroidery floss bobbins, and you wrap your embroidery floss that comes like this around these bobbins, and it just helps them stay in place a little bit better. They usually have a little split on one of the sides here that the embroidery floss can go through. I often will tuck my embroidery floss information around or underneath. You can write on them. So this is another way to store them. So a lot of times you'll see like a little case and they have all these little embroidery flosses in them. And that's all this is. It's from this to this so that they store a little bit easier and they don't get tangled, because let me tell you, they do get tangled, which is one of the reasons I actually like them now on these bobbins. Plus you can use these in your sewing machine if you're doing some type of embroidery with your machine. You can kind of transfer them a little bit. So just a couple of different methods or uses for the different embroidery floss. So let's talk about the embroidery needles. Now, embroidery needles are different than regular needles. They actually have a larger eye. Let me get up real close here. So you can see this one on the left has a much bigger eye than that on the right. And that is just an embroidery needle. So there is a difference between a regular sewing needle and an embroidery needle. Can you still use a regular sewing needle? Sure. You're just going to have a harder time getting all of those strands of thread through. That's why there's a bigger opening at the top of embroidery needles. Finally, and maybe this to me is one of the biggest things that you need to look into for yourself if you're going to embroider, is how you're going to transfer your design from the computer or your head or whatever to your fabric to put on your hoop. Now the method that I like the best is using these printable water soluble sheets. So you can pull a sheet out, run it through your printer, or you can even draw on it yourself if you want. And then your design comes out like this. So this is our stitch sampler. I just ran it right through my printer. I can remove this from the sheet and stick this right onto my fabric, and I'll show you that here in a second. This is a great way to transfer a design from the computer, from a book, from wherever, onto this water soluble stabilizer. So this one is from Sulky. Both of these are. This one's Sticky Fabra Solvi, and this one is Stick and Stitch. They both pretty much are the same thing. They both work really nicely, and you can run them through your printer. So I like these. Another method, if you don't want to print, is you can always transfer your design using a water soluble marker. So you would draw directly onto your material. I also, the Frixion, I think is how you say it, Frixion markers. They are actually pretty water soluble and erasable. These are the erasable ones. And so if you draw on your fabric and then put it underneath your iron, it'll actually disappear. So those are a couple of really good markers to have on hand if you're going to be doing some hand embroidery. And again, like if you need to, add something or whatever, you can use your marker for that, and then use your iron or water to get rid of that design. So those are pretty much the basics of tools that you're going to need to do some embroidery. And embroidery is actually a really simple skill that you can learn and add to your repertoire of creativity. And all of these tools are really going to help you be successful. But I do have one thing that I want to offer to you if you are learning to hand embroider, is we put together this beginner's guide to hand embroidery. It's a quick guide to get you started hand embroidery today. So in the guide, you'll have what we talked about today, just some of the getting started, what you need. You'll also have how to prepare and get your projects ready. There's information about needles and threading. You'll also get this stitch sampler, which I kind of showed you a little bit earlier, and we'll be going through in the next video so you can learn each of the stitches for basic hand embroidery. So if you are interested in this guide, you can, like I said, get it for free. The link is down in the description. It'll get emailed right to you, and you can get started, and you have all of this information in this video, as well as how to access the information for the upcoming videos, all in one place. So go ahead and head out to the description and grab your copy of this, and we will see you in the next video where we start talking about all of the different stitches for hand embroidery.